This section describes the Japanese village. Until just 100 years ago, more than 90% of human life was lived through agriculture. In other words, a village where agriculture is practiced is all that people have. In the previous issue, I explained the history of the village during the Warring States period. This time, I will introduce the history from after Hideyoshi Toyotomi unified Japan to the opening of the Edo shogunate. This time, rather than the history of the village, I will explain the history that is the premise of the village history. In 1590, Hideyoshi Toyotomi succeeded in subduing the Hojo clan, which was holed up in Odawara Castle, and bringing all of Japan under his control. This was accomplished in just 8 years after his master, Nobunaga Oda, was killed in the Honnoji incident. However, he could not become shogun, which Yoritomo Minamoto and Takuji Ashikaga assumed. It has to do with his family background. Yoritomo and Takuji were of the Minamoto family, which was descended from the emperor. Yes, to become shogun, one needed not only ability but also family lineage. Ieyasu Tokugawa claimed himself to be of the Minamoto clan. This is not a fact that has been confirmed today, but rather, leading samurai of the time claimed themselves to be descended from the Minamoto or Taira clans, in order to make their lineage appear larger. This was done in order to make their own family lineage appear larger than it was. In fact, they were probably the descendants of powerful local development lords. However, it was difficult for Hideyoshi, who rose from a peasant to become one in his lifetime, to fabricate even such a vague lie. Thus, he could not become shogun. However, he was appointed to the important official position of kanpaku at the imperial court. Although the imperial court rejected his appointment as a non-nobleman as well, he forced his way into the position by forging a kinship with a nobleman. Thus, Hideyoshi attempted to use the power of the emperor and the imperial court to govern rather than establish a shogunate. He enacted various policies that were followed by the Tokugawa shogunate. These policies would greatly change the shape of Japan in the years to come. The first thing he did when he became kanpaku and took charge of national politics was to prohibit fights between daimyo and between villages, which he enforced in 1585. In this way, he attempted to eliminate conflict throughout Japan. He mercilessly chased down any daimyo who violated this ban. Though the destruction of the Hojo clan, the daimyo of Kanto, was a violation of this policy. Next, he instituted a policy known as Taiko inspection of farmland, to find out exactly who was cultivating the land and who was paying taxes on it. This enabled Hideyoshi to know exactly how many people and land under cultivation each daimyo had throughout Japan and how large his economy was. Once the economic strength was known, the exact military scale of the daimyo could be estimated. Thanks to this nationwide land survey, he was the first in Japan to have access to important information that would serve as the basis for Japan's taxation system, economy, and culture. Hideyoshi then issued a sword hunting decree. This was a policy that forbade anyone other than samurai to carry a sword. In this period, samurai and farmers were similar, and farmers participated in wars with swords if there were battles. Hideyoshi banned farmers from possessing weapons when there were no more battles. This was done to prevent rebellion by the peasants and to establish the status of samurai and peasants. Hideyoshi was also outraged when he learned of the fact that missionaries from Spain and Portugal were enslaving Japanese people and selling them overseas. He banned Christianity and expelled the missionaries from the country. It is believed that these policies of Hideyoshi brought Japan from the medieval to the early modern period. In 1598, Hideyoshi Toyotomi died. The Toyotomi regime was based solely on Hideyoshi's strong charisma. He had a young heir, Hideyori Toyotomi. At this time he was only a 5-year-old child. Naturally, he was incapable of politics. The mistake that Hideyoshi made was that he could not build a strong vassalage to support Hideyori. He came from a peasant background and had no traditional vassals to support him. The Toyotomi regime was led by powerful daimyo who were held in power by him as the 5 feudal lords, and capable vassals who were Hideyoshi's protégés were in charge of practical affairs as the 5 magistrates. The first of these 5 elders was Ieyasu Tokugawa. Ieyasu Tokugawa was an alliance partner of Hideyoshi's master, Nobunaga Oda, and for Ieyasu, Hideyoshi was just a vassal of his alliance partner. In 1584, Hideyoshi fought Ieyasu in a battle for the succession of the Oda family. This was the Battle of Komaki Nagakute. In this battle, Ieyasu fought without backing down from Hideyoshi's army, which had 3 times the number of soldiers. However, Ieyasu mobilized all the peasants in his domain in this battle, and the economic situation in his domain had deteriorated to the point where he could not sustain the war. Then the heavens sided with Ieyasu, and in 1586 the Tensho earthquake struck Gifu and Toyama. The aftermath of this earthquake prevented Hideyoshi from continuing his war against Ieyasu, and he made peace with Ieyasu. Without this earthquake, Hideyoshi would have destroyed Ieyasu as he did Hojo. After this earthquake, Hideyoshi won Ieyasu Tokugawa to his side not by force of arms but by means of nostalgia. Instead of sending his mother to Ieyasu Tokugawa as a hostage, Hideyoshi Toyotomi, the most powerful man in Japan, made Ieyasu promise to bow down to Hideyoshi in front of many daimyo and pledge his vassalage to him. Thus, Ieyasu became the number 2 in Toyotomi's government and gained a great deal of power. Ieyasu Tokugawa was a man of patience. As a child, he grew up as a hostage in the Imagawa and Oda families. Even after becoming chieftain of the Tokugawa family, he could not protect his house by his own strength alone, so he formed an alliance with the Oda family. Even though they were allied, they were not on equal footing, but rather in a state of submission to Nobunaga Oda. As evidence of this, he was ordered to kill Ieyasu's wife and eldest son, who were suspected by Nobunaga of betraying him to the Takeda family, and he carried it out. Ieyasu served Hideyoshi well after he became the ruler of Japan, and on his deathbed Hideyoshi asked Ieyasu to assist his son Hideyori. However, there was no one who could stand up to Ieyasu after Hideyoshi's death. Ieyasu skillfully drew Hideyoshi's daimyo protégés to his side. He then provoked Mitsunari Ishida, who recognized Ieyasu as an enemy of the Toyotomi family, to provoke them into rising up against him. Then came the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, the decisive battle that divided the country. Ieyasu's skill was that he had already rallied most of the daimyo who were with Ishida and won them over to his side before the battle. The Battle of Sekigahara was easily settled when the Kobayakawas, who had been on Ishida's side, rebelled and sided with the Tokugawas. Thus, the forces that could oppose Ieyasu would almost disappear from Japan. In 1603, Ieyasu opened the Edo shogunate and established the Tokugawa family as the de facto rulers of Japan. Only Hideyori Toyotomi remained. The daimyo who had sided with Ieyasu could not turn their blades against Hideyori Toyotomi. Ieyasu grew older and older, and Hideyori grew into a fine young man. Ieyasu, in an attempt to bury the Toyotomi family while he still had time to live, made a false accusation and launched a war against the Toyotomi family. This was the Battle of Osaka. The Toyotomi family was destroyed in this battle, and the foundation of the Tokugawa clan became solid. Both the Toyotomi and Tokugawa regimes were formed by having powerful Sengoku daimyo submit to them by force. As mentioned in an early video I produced, the Edo period, the Edo shogunate made a clear distinction between daimyo who were vassals of the Tokugawa family and daimyo who were subordinated to the Tokugawa family by force. Only daimyo who were vassals of the Tokugawa were allowed to participate in politics during the Edo shogunate. These daimyo were called Fudai daimyo. They were allowed to participate in politics, but the territories they owned were small. Ieyasu handed over power, but did not give them military or economic power. Sengoku daimyo who were not vassals of the Tokugawa but followed Ieyasu are called Hazama daimyo. They owned their local lands and large tracts of land commensurate with their accomplishments. However, they were not allowed to participate in the politics of the Tokugawa shogunate. Ieyasu gave them economic and military power, but not power. This was Ieyasu's skillful structure of control. Tazama daimyo were given fiefdoms far from Edo. Ieyasu regarded them as potential enemies. He placed the territories of Fudai daimyo at important points to protect Edo in case they rebelled against him. They also had the task of defending Edo. The Edo shogunate was a thoroughly military government. To protect Edo, it was forbidden to build bridges over large rivers. Yes, the only way to cross the river is by ship. This makes it difficult to attack Edo with a large army. There is a major policy to prevent rebellion. It is the Senkin Kotai. The daimyo was allowed to stay in Edo for 1 year, after which he was allowed to return to his hometown. During that time, his wife and heirs must continue to stay in Edo. After 1 year, the daimyo who stayed in his hometown had to live in Edo again. In short, it is a policy of taking hostages to Edo. Moreover, the daimyo would pay for their transportation to Edo and their stay in Edo. This required a huge amount of money. A large daimyo would have to travel to Edo with a large number of his retainers to make the trip worth his while. Throughout Japan, Shukubamaki lodging towns were formed where the daimyo would drop enormous sums of money. The actions of these daimyo greatly stimulated the Japanese economy. This economic development was a major reason why the Edo period developed differently from the Muromachi and Kamakura periods. This development revitalized the town and became the force that gave birth to various cultures. The Edo period was the era of the common people. From the next issue, I will explain in detail the appearance of villages and towns in the Edo period. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel and click the like button.